Hi, everyone, this is the Encyclopedia channel. The book that this program interprets for you is the Almanack of Naval Ravikant, A Guide to Wealth and Happiness, which is the Guide to Wealth and Happiness. Of course, it is a bit unrealistic to obtain wealth and happiness with only one book. However, there is a reason that makes us feel that this book is especially worth reading for everyone. That's the author, that's Naval. Who is Naval? What experience has he had? What can we learn from him? The essence of life is a multiplication problem, how to understand it. After listening to this episode, you will understand. Who is Naval? He is an angel investor in Silicon Valley and an entrepreneur. This person was born in 1974, not very old, but in Silicon Valley, he is indeed a well-known figure. He has invested in hundreds of companies, among which he has invested in Twitter, Uber, etc. that we are familiar with. At the same time, he also has rich entrepreneurial experience and has founded dozens of companies, large and small. In short, it is the typical successful person. However, after you finish reading this book, you may find that among all the identities of Naval, the identity of a businessman is the last one. In fact, there are not many parts in this book that talk about how to make money. So what is this book mainly about? Let's start with Naval's other identities. Naval is a reader and has read a lot of books. Moreover, he has a special understanding of reading and learning. For example, he doesn't read bestsellers, avoids joining any so-called book clubs, avoids seeking any kind of community approval. For another example, Naval also said that reading should not pursue quantity. Quantity is a false proposition, because counting the number of readings is just to satisfy vanity. In fact, the more knowledgeable a person is, the more independent his thinking is, and the more books he can't finish reading. Therefore, don't deliberately pursue how many books you have read, but pay attention to new concepts that reflect trends all the time. For another example, how can we understand the knowledge? Naval believes that there is only one standard, and that is to tell the children once. If the child can understand, it means you really understand. Naval is a person who knows life very well. For example, someone asked him what retirement is. Naval tells you that retirement has nothing to do with age. Retirement means not sacrificing today for an imagined tomorrow. If you can live in the present moment, you have reached the state of retirement. For another example, someone asked him, how much money is enough? Naval tells you that when you feel it, you can get rid of your greed for money. How to get rid of it? Don't rely on willpower. Instead, rely on setting hard boundaries for yourself to act. That is, no matter how much money you earn, don't upgrade your material life. Enough to eat and wear. For another example, someone asked Naval, what is a resume? Naval said the resume has nothing to do with where you went to school or what jobs you have had. The so-called resume refers to the collection of pains that a person has endured. You see, Naval is a person who understands life very well. Speaking of this, I guess many people may not be able to bear it anymore, and want to write down these words and type them on the PPT, how useful it is. Indeed, many have already done so. This leads to Naval's third identity. He is still an internet celebrity, and he has said many classic sentences. If you read many local speeches, you will find that young people like to quote the words of these few people the most in PPT. Who is it? Buffett, Charlie Munger, Jobs, Larry Page, and Naval. From this perspective, I think this book is worth reading just for these sentences. In particular, if you feel that other people's classic sentences have been used up and are no longer available, Naval's sentences are worth a look. Reading this book was like doing counterintuitive spiritual yoga. It doesn't talk about any big and comprehensive truths, and there is almost no feeling that successful people are superior and talk about successful experience. On the contrary, it has a very low profile throughout the book. This book is an interesting person like Naval, who presents all his thoughts on life, learning, and entrepreneurship that he can think of. As I said just now, there is no main line in this book, it is all about Naval's personal feelings. If we insist on abstracting a structure, it will inevitably deviate from the color of the original book. Therefore, next, we also start from our feelings and talk about the most interesting things in this book. First part. As soon as you open this book, your first feeling is that it is very like a memo for life. Why do you say that? Because each sentence seems to be taken out as a famous saying. To give an inappropriate example, many words taken out alone are very like the epitaph of a person's life. And there are all kinds of words in it, about wealth, about life, about happiness, and so on. It's as if all of our concerns about life are written on it. Although it seems very scattered, if you read the whole book, we may have a hazy feeling, and you can experience this feeling no matter what level you are at. That is, the whole book seems to vaguely convey the truth about life to us, that is, what is the essence of life? It can be summed up in one sentence, that is, Naval feels that the essence of life is not an addition problem, but a multiplication problem. What do these words mean? In the past, we all felt that life was like an addition problem. Why do you say that? I do a little thing today and do a little more tomorrow, which is to accumulate memories and values for my life. Isn't this doing addition? Naval, however, felt otherwise. Life, it's more like doing multiplication. That is, every small move at the moment, it is like a multiplication problem, multiplied by a large number, then the calculation result of the whole problem will be doubled up. Speaking of which, you may feel that this is a lot like investing. Yes, as an investor, Naval has thought about his entire life in this way. You know, investors are very emotional about multiplication. Because in the field of investment, you often make a small decision right, and the returns you get are amazing. For example, it is said in this book that a person with an 80% correct rate of decision-making is compared with a person with a 70% correct rate, although you may not see that the correct rate is only 10% higher, but this correct rate is 80%. People with a correct rate of 70% get hundreds of times more rewards than people with a correct rate of 70%. This principle applies not only to investment, but also to many things in our lives. Why? It is actually not difficult to understand, because the truth of this world, its real structure is a network of layers intertwined with each other. In each layer of the network, the resources you access are different. Therefore, every time your ability rises to a higher level, you will be connected to a higher level resource network, and more and better resources will be involved at this time. This may sound abstract, so let's give a concrete example. For example, if you are a watchmaker, with your current ability, you may only be able to make gears with ordinary precision, and you can only receive very ordinary orders. However, if you can manufacture more precise gears, even if only a little more precise, then at this time, not only similar brands will come to you, but you will open up a higher level of resource network. Those who are more famous brands, even luxury goods, will take the initiative to cooperate with you. The brand value of your whole person will be improved as a whole, not just more orders. You see, this means that your ability to go up a little bit is equivalent to accessing a higher level and more valuable resource network. The value increment generated behind it will definitely be magnified by this network. Moreover, the extent of this magnification must exceed your initial imagination. In this book, Naval also gave another example, which is very interesting. Suppose you are the best deep-sea diver in the world, and you can go to see areas that others cannot, then what kind of benefits will you get? According to the usual assumption, since I dive deeper than others and can do more difficult tasks than others, it may mean that I can win more gold medals and win more competitions. But in reality, you can get much more than that. For example, suppose a sunken ship suddenly appeared in the deep sea, and the ship was full of gold and silver treasures. At this time, others can only think about this treasure eagerly, but you have the opportunity to directly explore the treasure. You see, as long as your ability is improved a little bit, you can connect to those higher level and better resources that others cannot connect to. If we follow this meaning and dig a little deeper, you will find that the whole book actually conveys a faint proposition to us, which is called never underestimate those small efforts. Many times, we all think, how can we accomplish a great event? Of course, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of determination, and a big opportunity to do it. Therefore, in the face of this huge task, many people can't help feeling afraid of difficulties. As a result, he hesitated to take action. But, as Navar tells you, don't underestimate the little effort in front of you. As long as you are willing to work a little bit more than others and put in a little more effort, then life will gain greater and more value through the multiplier effect. For example, in the past 2 years, many people have been talking about a concept called the bonus of sacrificing life. What does it mean? What I'm talking about is when others are perfunctory, fooling, and doing things carelessly. At this time, as long as you are willing to be serious, then you can enjoy huge dividends. Speaking of which, let me tell you a little story, the one about diamonds. We have all heard an ad slogan called "A diamond is forever, and one piece will last forever." The first to say this ad was the recognized giant in the diamond industry, De Beers. From 1888 to the present, the company has a history of more than 100 years. But in recent years, there has been a rising star in the diamond industry. This company is called Laraca, and it can be said that it has impacted the entire diamond industry. The world's second, third, and fourth largest natural diamond rough stones are all mined from it, and these are in recent years, all after 2015. You know, the last time the world's largest diamond was mined was in 1905, or 110 years ago. Then why can a company with such a short establishment time create such good results in just a few years? Why can he mine a rough stone that is bigger than other companies, and other companies cannot mine it? According to past thinking, it may be that they have found better mines and better resources, but they are not. All of this has been achieved with one small change, which is that they used new mining tools. Because many other diamond companies, they use mining tools that can destroy those larger rough stones. The company has made some small improvements in the tool. Of course, this damage will also occur, but the probability of damage will be relatively low. Note that just this low probability allowed them to discover 3 giant diamonds and established the entire company's position in the diamond industry. When it comes to the multiplier effect, we have to mention another word, which is also a word that investors like Naval are very concerned about, and that is compound interest. In this book, Naval specifically told us to pay attention to the effect of compound interest. If you have some understanding of financial literacy, you must know how important compound interest is. For example, if you invest 10 yuan and earn 10% every year, the first year is 11 yuan, the second year is 12.1 yuan, and the third year is 13.3 yuan. It seems nothing. However, if you calculate according to the compound interest rate of 30% per year, how much do you get for 30 consecutive years? That's not 10 times or 20 times the principal, but thousands of times, and you will get more than 26,000 US dollars. You see, does this count as a considerable income? In fact, it's not just wealth. In Naval's view, almost all returns in life come from compound interest. This is true whether it is relationships, love, health, or habits. For example, if a company has 100 customers and the customer growth rate is 20% per month, it will not take long for the company to have millions of users. For another example, you develop a skill and practice it every day. You may not need to practice for a long time every day, just stick to it for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, then this skill may become your specialty in the future. Maintain this positive accumulation rate, and the rewards in the end can be amazing. Let's do a simple calculation, assuming that you can improve by 1% every day, then 1.01 to the 365th power is the total amount of your progress in a year. What is the total amount? The answer is 37.8. In other words, as long as you are willing to work harder, improve 1% more, and persist for a period of time, then you will get a lot more rewards than you imagined. You see, again, don't underestimate those small efforts. Speaking of this, Naval has another reminder, that is, since life is a multiplication problem, and since we have to care about compound interest, one subject becomes particularly important in learning this matter, that is, basic mathematics. In Naval's view, almost all successful people must be people with excellent basic mathematics. Like geometry, trigonometry, and calculus, if you are a liberal arts student, you can put it aside for a while, but you must study these basic mathematics seriously, because these subjects will make you understand numbers, compound interest, etc. multiplier effect. These things are becoming more and more sensitive. Then Navar. As I just said, one of the biggest inspirations that Navar brought us is to tell us that the world is not an addition problem, and the efforts we put in life will be magnified with a multiplier effect and given back to us. So, don't underestimate those little efforts. Because of every effort, it does not just allow you to move forward a small step in place, but opens up a new resource network for you to move forward. In other words, what is our life like? It is like full of invisible doors. As long as you are willing to take a step forward, you can open that new door and enter a new world. So, in the final analysis, it's still the same sentence: don't get along, don't give up, don't underestimate those small efforts. Well, what we just said is the first and very important inspiration that this book brings us. It's just that life is a multiplication problem, so don't underestimate small efforts. The second part. Next, the other inspirations that this book brings us. As I just said, in addition to being a person who understands life and career, Naval is also a typical lifelong learner and a scholar. This person especially likes to read and likes to learn. So, next, let's talk about Naval's perception of learning and reading. Naval once said a word. He said, "Reading is my first love." He also said that reading is the best way to build a mental model of a person. Since reading is so important, how should we choose books, how to read, and how to judge whether we understand a book? First of all, in Naval's view, reading this matter is to be true to oneself, not to compete with others. It doesn't make much sense to read faster or more than anyone else. The better a book is, the more slowly you have to read and absorb it, says Naval. Counting the number of books read is just to satisfy vanity. Reading, in the final analysis, is not to show off to others, but to shape your own spiritual world. It allows you to become a clearer thinker and develop an independent perception of the world. Therefore, in Naval's view, when it comes to reading, don't pursue quantity, and at the same time, don't be afraid of repetition. For example, if you pick up a book and read halfway through it, you suddenly realize that I seem to have read this book before, or you might as well stop reading it and change to another one. Naval tells you, don't change it. If a book gives you this feeling, then it means that your brain is ready to read it again. So, keep reading. Follow your feelings and follow your own reading feelings. So, when we are faced with many different books, how should we choose books? Naval has a particularly solid piece of advice. He says to start with the classics. For example, books in the fields of mathematics, science, and philosophy are fine. It is estimated that when mathematics was mentioned just now, many people may shrink back unconsciously, but mathematics is actually very important, because it will cultivate our way of thinking and make us more rigorous. And the most important thing is that this era is full of data. The essence of learning mathematics well is to prevent us from being confused by those false data and make more accurate judgments about facts. Secondly, in the matter of book selection, in addition to giving priority to reading mathematics, Naval also has another suggestion, that is, must read classics. If you want to understand the theory of evolution, you must first read Darwin. If you want to understand macroeconomics, you must first read Adam Smith. In short, be sure to start reading from the early classics. Why? Because in Naval's view, the value that reading brings us is not evenly distributed, and the order of reading actually determines a person's way of thinking to a large extent. For example, those classic works and those good books that you read at the beginning of reading mean that you have laid a very good foundation in your entire knowledge building system. It will provide a solid foundation for you to add to this edifice in the future. To put it bluntly, early reading is actually doing the most primitive source code programming for your own entire reading system. The book you read at the beginning will affect your initial way of thinking, and once this way of thinking is established, it will be difficult to change it later. So, how do you read in the first place? Be sure to choose the best and most classic subject classics. Choose the most important books that can stand the test of time and scrutiny. Don't go after those popular books and new books as soon as you come up. Instead, as soon as you come up, you must lay your own knowledge base and read those classics that have passed the test of time first. In the final analysis, there is one thing, that is, try to read the good books that have passed the test of time first, because the books that people read first often have the greatest impact on people. This process is a bit like falling in love. People say that first love often establishes a person's view of love. Reading, maybe the same, is the first book to read, which often establishes a person's view of reading, thinking, and knowledge. How to read specifically. Navar's reading method can be summed up in one sentence, that is, the essence of reading is not to erect walls for oneself, but to find a way for oneself. What does that mean? To put it simply, many people tend to like to be more serious when reading books. They can't wait to plop down and kneel on the ground as soon as they pick up the book. If you don't understand it, you are sorry for the book, you are not responsible for yourself, and you are ashamed of knowledge. Therefore, no matter how difficult the book is, no matter how much time it takes, you must understand it chapter by chapter and page by page. Naval felt that this behavior was like erecting a wall in front of him. You see, this is to find difficulties for yourself, to find high difficulties. But should the essence of reading be a vertical wall? Of course not. In Naval's view, the essence of reading is to find our way. That's right, the essence of reading is to find a way in the crisscross network of knowledge in that chapter. If I don't understand this book, it doesn't matter, put it down first, pick up another one first, just follow your own feelings, and read books that you are interested in and can understand as soon as you read them. You see, is this process like when you are traveling through a dense forest of knowledge? What you care most about is not how to knock down the tree that blocks you in front of you, but whether you can look around when you encounter obstacles, to find another way out for myself. In this way, after reading all the way, you can easily build your own unique reading system. What is behind the reading system? Of course, it is your way of thinking, your entire knowledge structure. To put it bluntly, don't compete with a book in reading. Reading is not a task, but a kind of enjoyment. Instead of fighting your emotions, make reading something you enjoy. Again, reading this matter is never about finding a wall for yourself, but finding a way for yourself. Keep walking along this road, and you will definitely open up a new world that belongs only to you. Just now we said, how to choose books, how to study, and the last one, we have to set a standard for ourselves, which is this book, how can I understand it? Naval said, in fact, there is a very simple criterion for judging whether you have read or not. Don't look at the whole book to see if you have memorized everything thoroughly, but to see if you tell the book to a child. If the child can understand it, it means you understand it. Why? Children represent the most universal values in the world. He represents the simplest intellectual interest of a person. Therefore, if the child understands it, it means that you have mastered the most universally valuable content in this book. Of course, reading, in addition to the method, is more important than the will. Naval repeatedly emphasized that reading is very important, and he also specifically said that the difference between people is not educated and uneducated, but like to read and dislike to read. You look, in Navar's view, how important reading is to life. In fact, in this book, there are many other insights about reading, learning, and life. If you are interested in Naval, or if you want to consciously collect some classic sentences for yourself, then you can read the original book. After reading this book, you will have very strong feelings. It is this book that will make us rethink a question, that is, what is smartness? In the past, we all thought that being smart means that a person has a high IQ and can always make good choices. This is a kind of talent. However, in Naval, you will find out what it means to be smart. You see, Navar, he didn't have a particularly good background. He came out of a poor immigrant single-parent family and later became a well-known successful person in Silicon Valley. In fact, after reading this book, you will find that it is not because he must have a great advantage in IQ or think deeper and farther than others. Neither. It is because he has always maintained good thinking habits, including learning habits, habits of dealing with success, and habits of dealing with failure. He just kept on with these good habits. So what are these good habits good for? It will not allow Navar to achieve great success in the short term, but it will allow Navar to do a little bit better than others in many small things. For example, be honest, upright, positive and optimistic. Another example, when working, always be with people who are more successful and better than yourself. Another example, when playing, be with people who are happier than yourself. You see, these habits don't seem to be difficult, but as long as you can maintain these habits for a long time, remember what we said above, the compound interest of that time, it will reward you. So, back to the question we just mentioned, what exactly is smart? Smartness is not an innate talent, but a collection of many good habits. Finally, Navar has a reminder in this book. This sentence says so, he said 99% of the effort will be in vain. At first glance, you might feel a little cruel. Why would it be in vain? Since it is in vain, do I still need to make these efforts? Of course it is necessary. Because this sentence does not mean that hard work is meaningless, but that all hard work will be rewarded to you in another way at some point in the future. It's like a sentence in the movie, which says, now your temperament hides the road you have traveled, the books you have read, and the people you have loved. Yes, you have read many books, and the book specifically talks about what, I may not remember clearly later, but the principles in the book may have been integrated into your way of thinking, become a part of you, and help you understand the world. Yes, life is limited, and what we need to do is to find the most important 1% in life, and then go all out. This is the end of this episode of the show. What do you think about it differently? Welcome to leave a message to discuss with everyone. Hey, if you like our channel, please subscribe us. Haha, remember to like it.